Hello YouTube, it's Ryan here with Hobbies of Man once again, and today we're going to be doing another comic book review. Today we're going to be looking at Lady Mechanika Volume 1. This is written by Joe Benitez, and it has colors by Peter Steigerwald, I think that's his name. I can't really say it, I think it's kind of tough, but there you go. That's all the information you need. And yeah, this is published by Image. It used to be published independently by Joe Benitez as far as I can tell, but now it has been folded into Image. I think this has to do with Aspen being folded into Image as well, because that seems to be what's happening. I'm not exactly sure. Aspen was created by Mike Turner, and I'm pretty sure that he had ties with some of the people at Image, and I think that Image has taken over Aspen because Aspen has kind of been in this kind of weird limbo for the last 2 years, and I think that they're taking it over, and I think this has to do with that. I'm not exactly sure. If you guys know what's going on with Aspen and Image and with Joe Benitez and all of the stuff that is associated with him, please let me know that in the comments. They might be completely unrelated, but I'm pretty sure they have something to do with each other. So yeah, let me know that in the comments. But yeah, the demographic here is YA or teen. At least that's what it says here. It says rated T. And the genre here is a steampunk adventure. Again, that's what it says right here. And yeah, that definitely fits. It's a kind of Victorian age story with a lot of mechanical steam-powered stuff that really isn't kind of what you would expect from this time period. So yeah. In terms of adaptation, this doesn't have one, although this would be a great Netflix adaptation. Kind of similar to Arcane. I haven't watched it, but I think that kind of art style would work really nicely for Lady Mechanika, and I would actually really like to see it be a TV show that someone produces eventually, right? So hopefully that happens at some point. I think it'd be really cool. In terms of premise here, I think the best way to summarize this is that there's this lady called Lady Mechanika, and she's running around this steampunk Victorian England / Britain. She's trying to figure out where she comes from because she doesn't have memories of her youth. She just woke up one day, she had mechanical arms, and I think she has a mechanical leg, and she wants to know where she comes from. In order to do this, she has to kind of track down other people like her, and that's where she kind of gets roped into these adventures and these fights with people that are trying to recreate what she has in her arms, because she kind of is like this invaluable, kind of like ahead of her time android, and people want that for, you know, nefarious purposes. So overall, pretty interesting premise here, and I'm really excited to talk about it because I actually really liked it. I thought it was really cool. I'm not gonna lie, I did buy this because I just liked how she looked. I thought the character design for Lady Mechanika was insanely attractive, very beautiful looking. And there's a lot of cheesecake-esque kind of panels here, but it doesn't ever delve into anything kind of too raunchy. But I definitely ended up staying because the story is pretty interesting and compelling. So there you go. Yeah, let's get into talking about it. So the plot line here is pretty good. Basically, like I said, Lady Mechanika wants to know where she comes from, and the first story that we see is actually kind of like a prologue, and it's her trying to find this devil in Satan's alley or something like that happens to be this kind of like half creature, half mechanical being that is intelligent. So she kind of goes to find it, and then that's where she makes her main antagonist. She finds this guy called Blackpool, who is trying to find this kind of devil in order to gain its secrets and its mechanical power to, you know, do some nefarious things. And Mechanika is trying to kind of figure out where she's from, and so she meets with this little demon thing. Kind of looks like Dobby with a mechanical tail. Very interesting. And as she's trying to talk with him, you know, this bounty hunter that Blackpool hired shoots it. And now Lady Mechanika's angry, Blackpool's angry, Lady Mechanika kills all of these mercenaries, and she gains the interest of Blackpool, who then tells some other mercenaries that he has with him to try to capture her. Eventually, she ends up hurting him so badly that he has to have a mechanical leg and a mechanical chin attached to him, and she makes her first villain. Then we get into proper storyline here, which is kind of a while in advance, like a few years later or something like that. And now Lady Mechanica is trying to figure out what's going on, because there's this girl that had mechanical arms that appeared out of nowhere one day in this kind of place called Mechanica City, which is like not England, but similar in the same kind of vibe. And she gets roped into these adventures, trying to figure out who this girl is, and then trying to deal with this like crazy commander lady that's after her, trying to kind of kill her or at least capture her so that Blackpool can take a look at her mechanical appendages. So yeah, overall, very, very interesting. I liked it a lot. I thought it was really, really interesting. Overall, I think that the vibe of it is really cool. Basically, Lady Mechanica is this femme fatale character, and so a lot of what happens is these kind of like James Bond-esque infiltrations where she has to go act all suave and kind of badass and kind of gain attention of certain people in certain ways in order to kind of get where she wants. And then there's these fights with her against these kind of crazy other people. And then there's this kind of just general badassery to her that I think is really cool. That really highlights the interesting kind of, or kind of enhances the interesting kind of mysterious plot line that's going on here. So overall, very, very cool. I like the plot line quite a bit. So yeah, in terms of characters, there's obviously Lady Mechanica herself, who we don't really know too much about because she doesn't know too much about herself, except that she's badass. She has mechanical arms, and she's a very kind of, you know, femme fatale type of character. There's her friend Lewis, or Lewin or something like that. I can't remember exactly his name, but he's kind of this inventor guy that helps her out, and he's always drunk because he has a horrible past he wants to forget, right? So pretty general stuff there. And then there's this group of like circus people. They're kind of gitanos, or they're like gypsies, which I thought was pretty interesting. I think the main representative of them is actually just named Gitano, which is just Spanish for gypsy, so I think that's weird. But he's a pretty interesting character. He kind of ties in with the major plot of this volume pretty nicely, and generally I think that you know, those people are kind of interesting, but they really aren't there for much except fleshing out the plot line, so nothing too important there. But I like how they kind of fit with Lady Mechanica. Very cool. In terms of bad guys here, we have Blackpool, who is kind of obsessed with Lady Mechanica's arms, not necessarily the woman herself, and wants to be this kind of like powerful, you know, like philanthropist type figure, but he really isn't a philanthropist. He just wants to have power and be this kind of like very economically successful kind of mustache twirling villain, basically. And then we have this woman called Commander Catherine, who works under Blackpool in order to kill Lady Mechanica because she has some sort of like past with her that we don't know too much about. I think she's cool. She's also a pretty shitty person, but I think that her design is cool, and her kind of interesting back and forth with Lady Mechanica is cool as well. And then there's this guy called Kane, who is this like wizard person slash doctor. I'm not really sure what he is, but he is probably the most mysterious and actually most interesting bad guy that we got introduced to. And he's not necessarily bad, but he's definitely not a good guy. But he works in the same place as Blackpool, but they're at odds with each other. So there's really kind of an interesting dynamic here with all of these characters, and I'm curious to see where it goes, but overall, pretty good characters here. But of course, we need to read the rest of it to figure it out. But I don't know when I'll get around to it. So yeah, in terms of world building here, it's pretty cool. Pretty nice steampunk universe here. It kind of goes a little bit beyond just steampunk. There's this kind of more to it, but I can't remember what sort of vibe it's supposed to be called, but or what sort of genre category it falls under. But very, very interesting. It's Victorian. It's steampunk. It's very kind of like ahead of its time, but also with like a very old school aesthetic that I think is very, very cool. And Mechanica is a very mysterious character that we don't really know too much about, but we slowly unravel her mystery, right? And of course, there seems to be this element of magic in this world that really isn't clear, but there's this kind of like understood, like there's things that are not normal, and there's this kind of like werewolves are mentioned and vampires are mentioned. So of course, there's this element of magic. throughout this world, but it's mostly a kind of sci-fi steampunk adventure. So pretty cool. Overall, pretty interested to learn more about it. In terms of art here, it's very, very awesome, very cool. The inking makes it very, very nice, and the drawing is very, you know, good as well. Lots of very interesting, very attractive female characters, and pretty badass kind of like manly dudes. And yeah, not much more to say about that. I think the style of Lady Mechanika is very interesting. The Victorian era kind of makes for some very interesting and elaborate dresses. The, you know, like mechanical design of everything is very cool because it's very rounded. It's not very square like it is nowadays, which I think is really cool as well. There's a lot of text sometimes, but very cool stuff. Definitely does remind me of Mike Turner's kind of like drawings and stuff in Aspen, in like his Aspen series, like Fathom, or like his early stuff in Witchblade. Very similar to that, and I think that's really cool. So yeah, in terms of fan service, there is a little bit, but it's not really fan service in the kind of like very raunchy kind of way. It's mostly just like the way some of the female characters are posed and the kind of interesting or where they point your interest into. So it's not really all that bad. Everyone, because it's kind of a Victorian era kind of thing, is pretty well covered. There is no skin on display, but of course it's everything's kind of skin tight. So if you don't like that, don't read this. If you don't care, there you go. But yeah, in terms of rating here, it's a 4 out of 5. I think it's pretty awesome. I was really, really interested in it, but it didn't really finish convincing me like completely. It was like just shy of blowing my mind, right? So that's why it's a 4 out of 5. But I really, really liked it. I definitely recommend it. I hope you guys check it out. And I think that a similar title to this might be Monstrous. The other kind of Image comic that I reviewed a while back. I think it's pretty, you know, not similar because that one is more like eldritch horror with steampunk elements. This one is mostly just steampunk in general, but I think they have a similar aesthetic and kind of interesting vibe to them that kind of fits. But they are kind of different in art style and kind of story aspects. So there you go. But definitely check out both of them if you're interested. So yeah, I think that's it. That's all I have to say. And thank you guys very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, see you guys later.